Hi, I'm Leslie Kenton. I'd like to share with you some mysterious things that happened to me while writing the book Ludwig, a spiritual thriller. It began with a dream, and then many years ago developed into an absolute imperative that I write a book about Beethoven. And I began to research Beethoven. And I was reading maybe, 12 books a week. I read every biography that existed on Ludwig in English, and much more. And then I found myself, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing, reading books about things that I had no particular interest in and that didn't seem relevant to a book I was reading about Beethoven. I found myself also reading books about what are called conspiracies. And these are about organizations, secret societies of men who wanted to be able to control the world, and at the expense of human beings, of the planet itself, etc. And I thought, why am I reading this? And I had no idea, but I couldn't stop. And I thought, this is ridiculous, because this has nothing to do with, I'm writing a novel about Beethoven. And sooner or later, it began to come together. And I saw that it had everything to do with it. And at that point, I became quite frightened, because I thought, oh my God, if I write about this, people are going to know that I know something that I'm not supposed to know. And I was like, I had visions of being, picked up by the police, or, I don't know, attacked by the CIA or something. Anyway, that was one of the things that was very unusual. In the end, there was a marriage between the information that I learned about in relation to this kind of Orwellian secret society stuff and the life of Ludwig, right? And it all wove together in the book, to my complete amazement, because frankly I had no idea what I was doing, but it all worked out. Okay. One of the other things I did was I studied harmony and counterpoint while I was writing the book, because I knew I was really not a musician, and I didn't want any of the critics that would be reviewing the book to know that. The other thing that started happening is I started to be feeling as though I was being haunted by something. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was connected with the book. And I wanted very much to understand the nature of evil. Once I began to see that Ludwig had been very involved with men who wanted to use him in ways to assert their control, if you like. Okay. I rang a friend of mine who was the head of writer at Random House, lovely South African man, and I knew that he writer publishes the more spiritual books. And so I said to him, tell me something, I can't find anything that really is very sensible about what is the nature of evil, what does evil really mean, except for the stupid books, if you like, about witches and witchcraft and all of that, and that wasn't what I was on about. And he said, I thought you might know a book that I could read that would tell me something about that. And he said to me, well, it's funny, because we published a little book a few years ago called The Dark Gods. And it was written, he said, by a couple of aging hippies that lived in Glastonbury. But it was a very good book, and when we went back and said we wanted to republish it to the men that had written it, they said, oh, no, we don't want it published. It's caused us too much trouble. But he said, I'll send you my copy. And he sent me my copy, and I read the thing, and it was, oh my God. A lot of what the book talks about was the kind of hauntings that I had begun to experience while I'd been working on Ludwig. And I got back to him and I said, who are these people that wrote it? And he said, well, I said, I'd quite like to meet them. And he said, yes, of course. And he gave me the name of a man named Anthony Roberts who lived in Glastonbury, and I got in touch with him and said, I'm writing a book and I read your book and I'd very much like to come and see you. Okay, and he said yes, of course. So I was at the time living in Pembrokeshire in Wales. I got in the car and I drove all the way to Glastonbury, and I came to the house and I knocked on the door, and this very large man, he must have been 6'4" or 5, and he was dressed kind of in clothes like almost like an American kid in a baseball uniform. It was just like, and I thought, what on earth am I doing here? But I came in, and we sat down and we talked for about 3 hours, and he was wonderful. He was very intelligent. He was very direct. He answered all of the questions that I had, and I told him what was happening, and he told me what had happened to him and the other man that had written The Dark Gods with him. And finally, at the end, when I went to go get in my car and to leave, he said to me, I will go to the tour in Glastonbury every Friday at noon, and I will draw energy from the tour to protect you while you while you're finishing the book. And I didn't know what to say. I mean, I'd never met the man before. And I mean, what do you say? Well, that's very kind of you, I said, but I don't think I need the protection. Oh, yes, he said, you do. And anyway, I never thought the book would be finished because I had no confidence that I could manage it. But so I said thank you very much then. And I went away and I made the decision that I would get in touch with Anthony again if and when I ever finished the book. And lo and behold, about 2 years later, I actually did finish the book. And I rang to tell him this. A voice answered the phone. I said, may I speak to Anthony, please? A woman's voice. And she said, Anthony who? And I said, Anthony Roberts. And she said, but he's dead. And I said, what? He's dead? And I explained to her, she said, I'm his wife. And I explained to her, oh, well, I'm so sorry, God. And I explained to her all about how he and I'd met and what he said and about the tour. And she said, yes, he said he did go to the tour, and he did speak to me about how much he enjoyed meeting you. He did go to the tour every Friday at noon. I suddenly had this thought, and I said to her, I'm so sorry, but could you tell me how he died? And she said he died of a heart attack. And I said, and can you tell me, what date it was? And she said yes, and it was a Friday in February that year. And I said, and do you know what time? And she said yes, he had a heart attack next to the tour at 12 o'clock midday. And when I heard this, my first response was, oh my God, this can't be true. It must be something I saw on television or something. And I said that to her, and she said no. She said, I think it is true. Anthony had a heart attack, and he died while he was protecting me. And so, if you decide to read Ludwig, you will find that there's a dedication in the beginning of the book to Andrew, who gave me back my life, who was an enormously kind man, and out of sheer kindness was wonderful to me for many years, and Anthony, who died protecting it. I do hope you will read it. Thanks for listening.